Welcome to the Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts. We are your international headquarters for resources and ideas and insight in relation to the 9 elements of holistic wellness. Join us as we interview local and international wellness experts and learn how you can implement and improve one element or dimension of wellness at a time. Our experts will share their practical tips on wellness in one of these core areas: emotional, intellectual, occupational, physical, environmental, financial, spiritual, social, or habitual. We created our family of podcasts as a resource for anyone who is looking to integrate the 9 elements of holistic wellness into their daily lives. Welcome to the show. The Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts is proudly sponsored by the Global Wellness HQ community. It's an online membership group where we meet, we share ideas, we share insights, and we all work together and help one another discover our own personal wellness journeys. If you'd like to join us, you can easily click the link below or scan the QR code, and we love hearing your stories, so we hope to see you in the community.
Hi, everyone. Today, I'm really excited to have Jonas on the show. And John, I'm going to tell you a little story, but first I want you to introduce yourself. So John, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So like me personally,
Yeah.
yes. Okay. All right. So I am a husband. I am a father. I have 5 kids. I choose to spend most of my time with my wife and my kids rather than working. I am a disciple of Jesus Christ. I am an entrepreneur. I am a mediocre golfer and an above average skier. I'm pretty good on a mountain bike. I work about 17 hours a week. Like I said, I spend that time skiing with my kids or riding my bike with my kids. I run a pretty good, I mean, last year we hit 8 figures, my business. That's me. Yeah.
Awesome. And I love that you put who you are first, because usually somebody will go into, here's what I do. I love it when entrepreneurs can separate who they are from what they do. Now, for my readers and my listeners, today I'm talking to John, and this is fortuitous. And John doesn't even know this story, but I've been following onlinejobs.ph for at least a decade, I'm going to say. And I've always said, one day I'm going to. But for me personally, I realized that I was terrible, and I've failed at hiring local assistants. I've failed at hiring virtual assistants. I've failed at outsourcing. And the reason I failed was I was always trying to outsource stuff that I didn't understand, to people I didn't know how to communicate my needs to. And not that long ago, John was on a podcast. I will put the link in the show notes because I can't remember it off the top of my head. The host's name was Uchechi. She's a friend of a friend. And John gave me this little flash of insight. And John, I will let you talk in a second, I promise. But for the listeners, I'm an all in kind of person. So when John gave a little bit of insight, the insight was outsource the things you're good at. I went all in and I immediately hired 9 people. They drove me crazy because I hadn't offloaded enough time yet. And it just, John's laughing at me. And John, I'm sure you hear this a lot.
You can't hire 9 people at once, man. It just does not work.
You can do it, doesn't mean you should do it. There's a difference. So, John, you're going to tell me what I could have done better because I think you're amazing at this. But first, I want to talk about the Philippine people. Why did you start with onlinejobs.ph, which PH stands for Philippines, for anybody who doesn't know?
I didn't. I mean, I got some really good advice in 2005 to hire someone in the Philippines. There was no onlinejobs.ph. There was no way to hire people other than through an agency. And I had tried, like you, I had tried hiring people locally. It just was not working for me. I had hired 4 different people and it just didn't work. And I had tried hiring people on Elance, which is now Upwork, and that it worked, but I didn't realize at the time that like the giant burden fell on me because they were a contract worker. Their job was to do one thing.
Yep.
But there's a whole system around that one thing. It wasn't, they couldn't do the whole, they were writing articles, right? You have to do something with articles. And the whole burden fell on me, and that wasn't their job. And then I paid them, and then I realized they were all, half of them were plagiarized, and it was just a big mess, right? And I had tried India, and that was a disaster, and I won't get into that. But so this good advice that I got said, go to the Philippines. Like, what? That's weird. So I did. He gave me a reference where I could hire someone through an agency. I paid them $750 a month. They paid the worker $250. I didn't know that at the time. And this is 2005. Today, that's more like 2,500. Like, you're going to pay them $2,000 a month. They're going to pay the worker $500 a month. And it changed my life. It was the most liberating experience I'd ever had. I had no idea why it was working so well, but it was amazing. This guy's full-time job was to do anything I asked him to do, and he was willing to learn, and he was willing to try, and he was willing to think. I just had to teach him what I wanted to teach him, which was write the articles and everything else that went on with the system, right? Like,
and then do this and then do that, right?
That's right. And the resource boxes and the headers and the links. And I started teaching him SEO. So like, oh yeah, you write this article and you posted it on this website. Now post it on that, post another one on that website, and link them together and link into my website, and then do another one and link those and build another website. And so we started doing all this stuff. And it was shocking how easy SEO was, how effective it was. Like, I mean, to get to the top of any search term I wanted, I could do it, right? And this is 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
But with them doing it, I was ranked #1 on Google for like car insurance, like ahead of Geico and Progressive and whoever else. Just unbelievably valuable keywords, and life insurance and work from home and wrinkle cream, and rank #1 on Google for all of these things.
On demand, literally.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's amazing when you can do the work that you know how to do, when there's time to do all the work that you know how to do. It's shocking what you can get done. I just wasn't doing the work. Like you said, I had given him all of my knowledge so he could do the work that I knew how to do. I didn't know at the time, the Philippines, this is your original question. In the Philippines, there's this unique set of cultural things that make it really, really good for us. So the Filipino people are generally honest. They're honest especially with foreign employers. They're hardworking. They want to make you happy. They want a job. They want to keep that job. They are pleasing as a culture, so they want to make their boss happy. They speak American English, not Indian English. They have computers and internet access, which means you don't have to go through an agency to find them. They can work from home, and it works just as well. They are not entrepreneurial. They don't want to steal your business. They don't want to steal your ideas. They don't want to steal your domain name. They don't want to steal your website. They don't want to mess things up for you. They will work just as well for a female as they will for a male boss. There's no male female issue there. One of the biggest things is they're loyal almost to a fault. Like, that first guy that I hired from that agency still works for me today. That was 2005. He works for me today. When I hired him, he knew nothing. Today, he's unbelievable. I mean, so
that's the thing, they do want to learn.
Yeah, I didn't intend it.
So typical entrepreneur, out of your frustration, a business is born, and you're busy solving problems for your main business. And then all of a sudden, in 2005, I'm guessing it wasn't even a thought that, hey, I should build this agency. And
yeah, it wasn't even there. Like, it was in 2007 when I started teaching it. It took me, people were asking me about, how are you doing this? How are you doing this? How are you doing this, for like 18 months? Because it was working so well. And finally I was like, fine, I'll talk about it. I'll teach it. Fine. That was 2007. In 2008, I had the idea of like, finding people sucked through an agency. It's so terrible because the agency's incentives are not what you think their incentives are. Their incentive is not to find you someone amazing, which is what you think their incentive is, and it's not. And finally, I was like, I wonder if I could just build like a little job board where maybe I could get a couple hundred profiles into it, and then I could recruit someone myself instead of being forced to take whatever the agency gives me.
Yeah.
So I went back to the agency and was like, hey, can you give me a programmer? Which was, they when I went to them, they said, do you want a webmaster or a programmer? I was like, well, I want a content writer. They were like, do you want a webmaster or a programmer? Well, I guess I'll take a webmaster. And then they pulled like a warm body off the street and said, here's your webmaster. And that was it, right? He didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So I went back to them and said, I want a programmer. And we started building onlinejobs.ph. And when we launched it, the first month, we had a couple hundred profiles in it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. There's so much talent here. I had no concept that, like, I'm not a super visionary person. I had no vision that like we could have over 2 million Filipino profiles, or over 500,000 employers having used the site. No concept that that was where this was headed when I started it.
And I would second that hiring people is not top of my list of things I like to do. And, the first time I used the site, I had 200 applicants for the first job I posted. And I was like, wow. And, so to me, that was a little overwhelming, but that's why I hired 9 people. I really liked 9 people that I found, and I was like, okay, I'm going to give them something to do. Let's talk about what Jeff did wrong, because I think this is, so for context, most of my listeners are entrepreneurs like myself. They're typically coaches, wellness experts, some sort of expert. And there's a lot of things that they're God-given talents that they're really amazing at. And then there's a lot of things that are annoying little mosquitoes buzzing around the head. So for someone like me, first of all, what was my mistake with hiring 9 at once? I know the answer, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, okay, so let me take a step back and tell you what you did right, and that will explain what you did wrong. So what you did right is, when you talk about Uchechi's podcast and what you learned, the light bulb that went off, which was outsource something you're good at, outsource something you know how to do. And that's the piece of advice that I always give people, that is the opposite of what everybody else talks about. And I think everybody else is just spewing what they've heard someone else say because it sounds really good. Oh, outsource, stick with what you're good at and outsource all the rest. Like, dude, that's terrible advice. I'm really good. I'm a good programmer. Like, I graduated from College of Computer Science. Should I just stick with programming and outsource the CEO work? No, dude, that's super dumb. You have to be the CEO of your business, right? I outsource the programming work. So that's the first thing that you did really well. You outsource the thing that you know how to do. What you did wrong is, if you haven't outsourced the things that you know how to do, you cannot manage outsourcing things you don't know how to do. And not that you can't, but so here's what happens. You're working 55 hours a week. You hire someone to do something you don't know how to do. You don't know how to manage that thing very well, right? And then you've just added 5 hours a week to your time. You're already overwhelmed. Now you're extra overwhelmed and you don't have the time to deal with that other thing. Now you're also not handling what you were previously doing as well. And you're a bigger mess than before, right? So what you decided was, I'm going to hire someone to do something I know how to do. Awesome. Get that thing off of your plate with one person, and then get another thing off your plate with that same person, hopefully. And then now you're working 45 hours a week. You've gotten 10 hours off of your plate. That's such a big deal. Now you hire a second person, and now you can more effectively manage that thing that you don't know how to do. Or what I did was, before I ever hired something I don't know how to do, I had 3 or 4 or 5 people on my team doing things that I did know how to do, and things that I kind of knew how to do, or things that I knew how to do, but I wasn't doing because there wasn't time in the day, or things that I knew how to do, but I didn't like to do, or things that I thought I knew how to do and I could figure out how to do, but it was better if I could teach someone else to do it because there's not enough time for me to do it, right? So all of those things were the things that I got off of my plate first. Then I started outsourcing things that I don't know how to do. And that was so much more reasonable once I was, my working hours were way, way, way less. Yeah. So what you did wrong was hire 9 people all at once. I mean, you have to give them things to do, right?
Yeah.
And you just cannot give 9 people things to do all at once.
Well, and for anybody listening, I'm laughing because John literally described my life. I was overworked and thinking, okay, I need to outsource. I heard, oh, here's how to do it. I got excited. I over outsourced. And then I was literally curled up in a ball in a corner saying, please stop, please stop. Like the noise was so intense. And I worked like 7 days a week, all of a sudden, 14 hours a day, because, I'd have some people working days our time, some people working nights our time, and it was just this never ending stream of training. And I was like, I'm good at, and ironically I create training, but I was like, I have my training I create for a living, and then there was all this stuff I was doing internally. Now I will say, and to John's point, there are things that I'm good at, but I'm painfully slow at. And one example, I am colorblind. Not making a joke, I am literally colorblind. My visual work, I can create visuals, but I'm always cautious because I don't understand which colors go with which colors. Everything for me is knowing the number of colors. Um, my Philippine team has made everything in my life much prettier. And all I had to do was teach them how I started the thing. And now I just say, here's what I'm looking for. And one thing I love is they always over deliver. So I'll ask them for a visual or a graphic on one thing, and they'll send me 3 different versions. And I'm like, great, now I can't choose which because all 3 are amazing.
Yeah, that's an interesting piece about them over delivering. They want to over deliver. That's part of what I said in the beginning was they're
Yeah.
like, there's a pleasing culture. They want to make people happy. This is why they work in nursing and hospitality and cruise ships or whatever around the world, right? Because they want to make people happy. They're enjoyable to work with. But, and this is something else you've done well, I can tell just right now from the results you're getting. So in order to have them go above and beyond, they have to trust you. So this is an interesting piece about this whole thing that I had no idea in the beginning. But we often go into this with like, oh, I don't know if I can trust this person, right? They have that same feeling, but their feeling is stronger than your feeling. And a big reason why is because, so the Philippines is it's a third world country. They don't want to be called a third world country. They want to be called an emerging economy. But there's no recourse in the Philippines when something goes wrong. You don't have a job, you don't have money, you don't eat. That, like, you don't have rice. That's it.
No safety net.
You're hungry.
Yeah.
There is no safety net. In the US, you can get food. There is not that doesn't exist in the Philippines. So when you hire someone and they work full time for you, they just put their life in your hands, and they don't know if they can trust you to pay them, to not fire them when they do something wrong, to not yell at them. They don't want to lose face. Face is, we think of that as like typically like a Japanese Asian thing, but it's an Asian thing, and it's a Filipino thing. They don't want to lose face. They don't want to be embarrassed, and they don't trust you that you're not going to embarrass them. And so when you hire them, if you want them to go above and beyond, which is super duper reasonable, you just have to do things to gain their trust. And one of the big things that you do is provide training to them. They expect it, they need it, they crave
love it.
And you provided training, right? And so that's why these people are going above and beyond and delivering you extra things, because they trust you to give them training, to be nice to them, to not be upset when they do something wrong, to not fire them, to pay them on time, right? So when they trust you, they're gonna, it's amazing what they'll do.
And that's, for me, I actually brought in somebody who's creating my systems and processes, because I'm a visionary, and my version of the systems and processes, I drew a little stick figure on a napkin. I'm like, there, see. So I actually hired somebody whose entire background is Six Sigma and creating systems and processes. He's in heaven right now because I'm requiring that 10% of his workday has to be on him learning something new. And if it's something I'm doing, and so what I do is I create training videos for my team now, and then I give it to him and he turns it into an actual training mechanism. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how others are doing the training, because to me, they're so hungry for that training. And when I said that we require 10% of your time be on training, one of them actually said, "Did Christmas come early this year?" Like, he's so ecstatic about it. So hi, Lance. Just I'll shout out to him because he'll be watching this.
Yeah, that's sweet. So yeah, they're very hungry for training and learning. And that's one of the really big things. One of the really great things about the Philippines is they want to contribute. They don't want a dead end data entry job. They are thinkers and they want to improve and have a career and grow and learn, right? Okay, so your question, how are others doing this? There's so many different ways, but let me start with, I suck at creating SOPs. I hate it because I know all of your listeners are like, "Oh, I can't do this. I hate creating SOPs. It's the worst." That's how I am.
Yeah. There's little tantrums going on right now. So everybody have a
Yes,
tantrum.
right.
Now listen to John.
So here's how I have made it work. I don't create SOPs. I don't do it ever. I got lucky in that I discovered the Philippines because they're so loyal. I have had turnover wise in my business in the last 20 years, 18 years, like 10% turnover total across the years.
Unheard of in North America.
It's impossible, right? It's because they are so loyal and I treat them well, right?
Yeah.
So here's how I train. And if you are willing to treat people in the Philippines well, this will work really, really well for you. So number one, I do not create SOPs or documents with training materials in them. That's too much work for me. The only thing I can manage to do is talk my way through something. So I use Snagit, it's a screen capture, screen recording software. Other people use Loom or Screencast-O-Matic, or Tiny Take is another good one that's free. All these other are paid now. I use Snagit and I will drag it out on my desktop and it will record my screen, my mouse, my voice. It can record me with my webcam into the video. It's recording all these things at once, right? And then I just talk my way through the thing. Like, okay, I want you to write this article. Here's how we're going to write these articles. Look at this and this and this and this and this. Here's this one that I really, really love. Here's why I love it. Here's what I'm looking at. Hey, look at how they did this. Look at this formatting. And I'm showing them my screen, but they're not live with me. This is just me, right? During my workday. And here's what I want you to do with it, right? So I go through the whole process recording it. It may be a 1-minute video. It may be a 15-minute video. The real magic of Snagit is that I click stop on my recording. I click upload, and Snagit uploads it to a server in the cloud. And then it puts the URL in my clipboard so that I don't have to deal with hosting accounts. I don't have to deal with rendering videos. I don't have to deal with, oh man, this video is too big for my email, so now I have to change the size of it or something silly, right? Snagit just deals with all of that. And it puts the URL in my clipboard, so all I have to do is click paste. I click paste into an email or into a project manager system and send it to them. And now they are hearing my voice, seeing my screen, watching me walk through what I do. So to go a little bit further with this, number one, them hearing your voice is a big deal towards them gaining your trust. So that this works really, really well for that. Number two, my training sucks. And yours does too when you create it. And I know that because I've seen this so many times now. And like when they don't do something right, I've seen so many people be like, "Oh, they suck. Like they didn't do, I explained it so obviously. Look at what I did." And they'll send it to me and I'll look at what they did and I'm like, dude, I have no clue what you're asking me.
You thought we were going left. We all went right. So there's something wrong with the instructions.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Your instructions are horrible. And mine are too a lot of the time. And I've gone through this process where I've like given them instructions, they've done it wrong. So I've created another set of instructions. And then another set of instructions. They've done it wrong, 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 wrong. And finally I went back and watched and I was like, oh, that was terrible. Now I see why they did it. Okay, so what I find is if I create the instructions, often it'll be right and they'll get it right. And they love it because they get to see my screen. They get to see exactly as it is instead of like a PDF, which doesn't get it right, or me typing an email and whatever. I also do this at the speed of thought, right? So it's not me typing and editing. It's just me talking through this. However fast I can talk through it, that's how long it takes me. It takes me 5 minutes, which is so much faster than trying to create an SOP and take screenshots and put them in and format and blah, 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 right? Okay, so the next thing about this is I do not create I don't have an archive or a place where I put all my SOPs. What I find is if I create training like this, it gets put into an email, it gets put into a project management system. And if that training continues to be relevant, we'll continue to reference it. And because of the way Snagit works, it lets me upload that to my own server rather than just to their cloud. And which means that file is available forever. So I have training from 2007, 2008 that I created and is still referenced, and it's still available on my server because it gets uploaded to my server. Now doing that, I have a video where I explain it. It's super duper simple. But if you use Snagit or Loom or Screencast-O-Matic and upload to their service, at some point they remove your videos, which to me is like the worst case scenario, because then what I created, I don't actually know what it was that I created because I can't watch it. It's gone. And the training is gone, and that's the worst. So that's how I do my training and SOPs. I upload it to my own server. It's always there. If it becomes irrelevant, we just stop referencing it. It just naturally disappears. But if it's continued to be
into the background,
yeah, it stays live and in the front.
I love it. Now the next question I'm going to ask is a very practical one. How are you, on average, finding people are communicating with their team in the Philippines? Is it usually by email? Is there something else? Is it purely project management?
Yeah, there's no usual here. People are doing everything. And so for me, like I never, ever, ever get on the phone with my people. I've had people since 2005. I can count like on less than 2 hands how many times I have been on the phone or on a video call with them, right? So,
and to that, if I may add, I've found a few of them are very uncomfortable on video or speaking because they're comfortable writing in English, but for some reason, and again, I'm just going to say us North Americans must be real jerks sometimes because they're really worried that we're going to laugh at their language skills.
yeah, and that's not some few, that's most. Most of them are afraid to get on a video call, which is one of the big things, one of the big mistakes that people make when they go to recruit someone. The first thing they want to do is do a video interview. That's the worst thing you could do. So yeah, I find that people communicate through email. I've done a lot of email communication. I still do some. I do a lot of project management system communication. I know a lot of people do chat. Some people do phone calls, like they do a daily phone call with their people in the Philippines. They have a scheduled time or like a Zoom call. So whatever you're comfortable with works. Like they'll handle it. The Zoom call is less likely to be received well, but if that's what they have to do when they get a job, then they'll do it, right?
Yeah.
They want a job.
And I will just say, you can tell they know they have to be there and therefore they are. So I made that mistake right off the bat. I had a weekly team meeting and I was like, why is everybody so uncomfortable? It was like I'd, talk to them about, converting them to a new religion or something. They're all just sitting there staring at me. And
yeah. It's something that, so I'll give you an example of this and why this is potentially. So one time, way early on, I got on 2 phone calls. One was with a programmer. Well, they were both with programmers. One of the programmers he had been working for me for a year. He was amazing, like the best programmer I've ever met. And I graduated computer science, right? I got on the phone with him because I thought it was so urgent and I needed to, and I could not understand a single word he said. he had been with me for a year. I'd never had a communication problem with him through email. I could not understand anything he said. I got on another phone call with another programmer. His English was flawless, perfect. They don't want to get on the phone, and partly because they think you're not going to understand them. They potentially have not ever spoken to an American live.
Yeah.
So,
and now let's talk about, because this is the part I really love, is what can they do? And I know that's a big blanket question, but let's, my typical listener, they're a healer of some sort. Maybe they're a chiropractor, maybe they're a physiotherapist. Their God-given skills and talents lie in healing people. That leaves a wide range of business activities that they shouldn't be doing, because in my experience, healers don't necessarily make great bookkeepers. They're not necessarily great. You're laughing. They're not great at social media. They're not great at graphics. But what are some of the things that you are surprised by every day when you see people doing it and you're like, wow, that's genius?
So I'll give a list of things. So like, building websites is super simple. Creating content is super simple. Social media is super simple. They're really good at all these things, bookkeeping or accounting or, here, I saw, someone forwarded me a Twitter thing from someone. His post was, I walked into my dentist's office today, and on the receptionist desk is a computer monitor and a microphone. And on the screen is someone in the Philippines. And I walk in and they greet me. They are on a live stream in the office. And he said, the dentist said, I just had really hard time keeping receptionists who were good. And I hired this person in the Philippines and they're amazing. And so they are a receptionist, right? So what I've always said is anything that can be done on the computer or on the phone or on the internet can be done in the Philippines. And you can find just
skills with the receptionist thing. That is
shocking, right?
brilliant.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Why not?
Why not? Right.
All
And
it
then,
takes
that person in the Philippines is probably being paid, maybe $700 a month for full-time work. That's way different than a receptionist, right?
Yeah.
So my question would be, what do you have people doing for you?
Well, this is going to be a big epiphany for my listeners, but I am the world's hardest working lazy person. A friend of mine said, "You're not lazy, you're efficient." My biggest aha was I do a lot of research and I write a lot of books, and I couldn't fathom how I could do that. And what I realized was there's low level research where I'll spend a day just sort of gathering random facts. That part of the process, I figured out how to outsource that. So it's wonderful because I literally last night I reached out to the team, said, hey team, we're working on this research project. I went to sleep. I woke up this morning and that menial sort of beginner work is done. I now do my deep dive stuff. And once I do the deep dive, there's more menial research. So I send them out on their little tangents. But I've written 4 books in the last week by having my team do all of the foundational research for me while I focus on the processing and the writing.
Yeah.
The other part is anything visual. I do a digital magazine for my audience and my podcast visuals. Anything graphic. Like I said, I'm a colorblind accountant by training. Anything they do visually is way better than I ever envisioned it. So they make my stuff look really pretty.
Yeah. Accounts receivable, accounts payable, super simple. Software stuff is super reasonable to hire someone in the Philippines. Anything that's going to take time, like that you could figure out if you had the time, man, I can't tell you how many times over the years I have done this where I've just said, hey, I want you to figure this out for me. I don't have the time to figure this out. Like I could. So, okay, here's one. I have a WordPress blog, and this is like the most simple thing that will give people an idea. I have a WordPress blog. I write a blog, right? one day I get an email from WordPress that says someone just subscribed to your blog. I'm like, what? I don't want this notification. What? I don't want this dumb email. And so I clicked it. I clicked the notification to go into WordPress, and I saw all the settings and was like, oh yeah, I have no clue how to turn this off. I'm going to spend 10 minutes trying to figure out how to turn this off. I may or may not find that setting. And then I'm going to be frustrated if I don't. If I do, it took me 8 minutes, and fine, it's done. Forget it. I went back to the email and forwarded it to someone in the Philippines and said, will you please figure out how to turn this email off? And that's all I did, right?
I've done that a lot in the last week. It's like,
And it's
literally,
amazing, right? So just so you know, towards that blog that I write, that is my that's my podcast. It's my email newsletter. It's my blog. The only thing for that I do is I record the podcast. Someone else writes the newsletter. They edit the podcast. They publish the podcast. Actually, they publish it as video onto YouTube. So I'm getting YouTube content. I'm getting blog content. I'm getting podcast content pushed out. They write the blog. They publish it. They link the newsletter to the blog post. They link to the podcast. All of it gets done by someone in the Philippines. That's not me.
And I love that, because my day, and I'm sure yours as well, can easily be eaten away by 10 minutes here on how do I do this, 10 minutes here on how do I do that. And instead of trying to solve things immediately, I just send a message to my team. And I was having trouble with Zoom for a while. I was getting these weird settings popping up, and it was some change they made in security. And I just said, could somebody figure this out for me? The other one was we use Canva for visuals, and it was every time somebody made a change, I was getting an email, and I'm like, please stop that. And it was great, because my first reaction was I started to search on Google, how do I stop these notifications? And I went, wait a minute. And I reached out to the team and I said, could one of you research this? And it's amazing, because they summarize what they found and they tell you exactly what to do. And sometimes it's fixed before I even find out they researched it. So,
Yeah.
and I'll point out, I deal with an enormous amount of podcasters. I say this over and over and over, and I'm going to repeat it for those listening. Your time is best spent doing what I'm doing right now with John, building relationships, having an interview. The minute the show is over, pass it off to your person in the Philippines. And as John said, magically, you've got something on your blog, on YouTube. There's a lot that can be done. And I love the simplicity of anything that can be done at a computer. That receptionist one, that blew my mind. I'm just going to share that.
Yeah, that was shocking to me.
Because most people, don't need a full-time receptionist, or as you said, they can't find one or can't keep one. Why not just have a laptop with a video camera and, somebody sitting there? Last thing I want to talk about, and John, I really appreciate you sharing. Let's talk about cost, because you threw out some numbers at the beginning, and one of my little pet peeves is there's some predators out there. As you said, they'll charge us almost North American prices, and then they're turning around and paying Philippine pesos very, very low. So let's talk about what that looks like, because I love the model that you're not an agency, but you're more of a, I'm going to call you a matchmaking service. You can course correct me, but what sort of costs are people looking at to get a good virtual assistant?
Okay, so let me just explain how onlinejobs.ph works, because everybody here right now is wondering, how do I find someone good? That's what they're wondering.
Yes.
Okay, so onlinejobs.ph, I would say not a matchmaking service. We are just a job board. So we have Filipino profiles. You come on and post a job. People will apply to your job. It's a free market. We don't get involved. We don't refer people. We don't tell people what to do. We have some rules, but that's to protect people. So you post a job, if you post a job for a virtual assistant, you're going to get 200 applicants, which is overwhelming, right?
Yes.
So
especially when you do it 9 times.
Yeah, right. It's super overwhelming. And we actually cap it at 200
Thank
because
you, by
it's
the way.
too much. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So the cost, I have 40 people that work for me full-time in the Philippines. And they range between $450 a month and $2,000 a month for full-time work. And on the low end of that is like someone who doesn't know anything and they're doing data entry. On the upper end of that, I have like someone who's really, really good at Facebook ads, or a user interface designer, or really high-end senior programmer, or like things like that, right? And in the middle, I have like really good English writers who write like me. And I have really not, I mean, this is in the middle range, like really good designer, video editor, good, I mean, like just people super talented across the board in whatever we need, quality assurance, or back-end admin, or social media management, or graphic creation, or web stuff, right? Okay. So here's, and all of those are, we pay them directly. There's no, we don't take a cut of pay. There's no fees involved. There's no, like the only fee is whatever the foreign exchange currency fee is, which is like a 2% fee. You don't pay us to, you don't have to stick with us to keep them employed with you. They work for you separately outside of us. So how do you find someone good with, that's the thing that everyone, like, how do I find this person now, right? How do I know if I can trust this person?
Yes. You have a program. Can we talk about the Rockstar?
Yeah. Okay. So years ago, I realized, oh yeah, this is the thing that everybody wants. So I wrote it all down in detail, how I do it, how I find someone. And the way I do, so I'm lazy. I mean, I'm not lazy, but like you, I'm exactly like you. I'm very efficient. I do not want to recruit someone. Spending time recruiting someone sounds like the worst thing I could do. Even though it's the best thing I could do, time-wise, ROI-wise, it's the absolute best. The thought of doing it is terrible. So to me, what I've found is just getting the ball rolling is sufficient to get me to follow the process. So let me just go over really quickly my process. When I wrote this out in detail, I made it available at onevaaway.com. It is $99 one time, and it will walk you step by step through this process that I'm about to describe in detail, which I'm going to describe it in 3 minutes. And it is, I guarantee it works for you, or I'll give you your money back, right? And it should not, this shouldn't take you more than 2 hours, maybe 3 hours total, including watching all the videos, doing what I'm just about to describe, and hiring someone. So what I do, go to onlinejobs.ph, search for the skill that you're looking for, search for the role, whatever it is. You're going to look at 10 to 20 profiles. In doing this, you're looking for 2 things. Number one, you're looking for the skills that exist. Like, what skills exist? Can I actually find someone with these skills that I want? What other skills do they have? What kind of a person could I find? That's what you're looking for. Number 2, you're looking for salary. How much are these people looking to make? Then you have a really good idea of what to post in your job post. And since, hopefully, you're posting a job for something you know how to do, posting your job is really easy because you know what it looks like, you know what the outcomes look like, you know what the skills are, you know what training to provide, you know, because you know how to do this thing, right? So now you post your job, you know what skills you can find, you know what salary people are looking for, you can post a salary number, post your job. Let me give you a little bit of advice in this job post. Number one, if the more specialized of a position you're looking for someone that knows a specific software piece, then the more specialized it is, the fewer applicants you're going to get from a job post, and the more you need to proactively contact people based off of their resumes, which is one of the great things about onlinejobs.ph. You can find a resume and contact that person. Just because you contact them does not mean they're available to work. They are, if they already have a job, they're likely to not respond to you because they already have a job and they're loyal. Okay, so you post your job, maybe you've contacted some people, you're going to start getting applicants. When you get these applicants, what I do is I do not schedule a Zoom interview with them. That's what everybody wants to do. It's the worst thing you could do. The way I do this is I start interviewing people through email. So I will send them 1, 2, 3, 4 questions across 3, 5, 10 emails. And what I have found is that this is a really, really good, fast weeding out process. And I'll just send the same questions to all the applicants so that each email takes me 2 seconds or 30 seconds instead of a video thing that's going to take me 30 minutes. How I'm getting that text, I don't know. So I'll send these questions. And what I found is if someone answers 3 questions and I ask them 4 questions, well, the chances of them doing 3 tasks when I've assigned them 4 after I've hired them are just really high. It doesn't work for me. I found that if it takes them 3 days to respond during the interview process, then it's probably going to take them 3 days to respond after I hired them. And that doesn't work for me. What I found is scammers don't want to go through this process. They want an easy, quick job that they can pressure someone into paying them really quickly. That doesn't work for me, right? I've also found it's really easy for me to drop people out of the recruiting process. I just stop responding to them. I found that a lot of people will drop themselves out of the recruiting process because they don't want to respond to 5 emails, right? They're looking for something simple. It just works really, really well to figure out any red flags or anything's wrong. And then when I've narrowed it down to like 2 or 3, then I'll give a test task. And that test task is short, or if it's a bigger thing, I'm going to pay for it. If it's going to take longer than 20 minutes, I'm going to pay them for it. They're very scared about doing work and not getting paid. They're scared about getting taken advantage of. And then at this point, if you need to, now's the time to do a video call with them. Which I don't ever do the video call unless they're going to be doing phone or video work for me. Because why would I recruit with video and then communicate with them forever after that with email? You know, like I'm going to recruit the same way I'm going to work, especially in a virtual relationship. It matters. And this is a good way to establish trust early on. You progress your trust with them and their trust in you. So anyway, I cover this whole process at onevaoa.com. Super, super simple and very efficient.
I love it. And one thing I'll point out for my listeners is your marketplace. That's the word I was looking for. Your marketplace makes it really easy to communicate with people. It makes it easy to pay them. I found it fascinating. It was nice because when I had my recruiter hat on, I'd log into the portal and I'd do the emails back and forth, as you said. And 200 applicants was overwhelming, but very quickly I realized copy paste. I'd ask them a question, and then whoever answered quickest, those were the ones that went to the next round. So I want to just chime in and second that. And yeah, I think it's fascinating. Now, I could talk to you for hours about outsourcing. I'm absolutely a fan of it. I think we're all too busy. Is there anything I should have asked you about? Anything you want to talk about? Anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
I mean, there's a lot of things that we could cover. Obviously, you know, it's a podcast. We only have a certain amount of time, right? So the one thing that I would say is this doesn't work for everyone. This is not a magic bullet. These are not magic humans, right? They're humans.
Yeah.
They're people, and they have skills, and they have families, and they have problems, and they have shortcomings, right? So if you have 0 tolerance for things not being perfect, this is not going to work for you. Like, they're not going to do things correctly the first time or every time. If you don't have any patience with people, this is not going to work for you. So when you realize that, the only way for you to know, is this going to work for me, is you have to try it. Like you have to, it's a leap. It's a leap of faith. When I first did it, I didn't know. Like, I didn't think I could keep someone busy full time. I didn't know if they could do good work. I didn't know if I could afford it. I just didn't know. I didn't know if they could do the work that I was doing. I didn't know. I had to take the leap. And it for me, it turned out amazing, right? For you, you just have to take the leap and see. It works for most people. It doesn't work for everyone.
Well, and I want to touch on that afford it part, because that was the other thing you said in your podcast with Uchechi was, a lot of people think, oh, I can't afford it. But the question is, what if you're not getting that thing done that drives your business forward? How much is that costing you? And that kicked me right in the face. And I went, oh, I'm going to find a way to make it happen.
Yeah. So what I've come to realize over the years is if you can't afford it, you can't not afford it. Unless, okay, so people are asking, how do I know if I'm ready to hire someone? You're ready if you have something in your business that you could teach someone else to do. If you don't know what you're doing, yeah, okay, right. You don't hire someone, right? But if you have something that you could teach someone else to do, you're ready. And if you can't afford it, if you think you can't afford it, dude, give it a shot and hire someone part-time. Don't even hire someone full-time. Fine, hire someone part-time or hire someone hourly, whatever. But you're going to be shocked at what you can afford and what a difference getting stuff done and getting stuff off of your plate, what a difference that makes in your business. You can't not afford it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll second that because one little project that I offloaded costs me minimum 20 hours of my life a month. I now spend 2 hours on it. That was huge to me
That's
because number one,
impossible. Right? I mean, you're telling me you got 18 hours in a month.
Yeah. With
Dude,
one
that's the sleep you're not getting, right? That's the difference. That's the exercise you're not getting.
time
that's
with my kids, or
that's the time with your kid. Like that's it, man. Yeah.
So to me, and that's, I mean, the reality is I deal with healers. How many more people can you help if you've got an extra 18 hours a month?
Or could you help yourself?
Or yourself, yes, self-care,
right?
Or whatever.
We so
By the
often
way,
forget about ourselves.
fun thing I did with my people, I have them research spas and wellness resources near my clients, and then I send them a nice little card saying, hey, you should check out some of these resources. I'm helping them take care of themselves so they can take care of their patients. So John, I am the unofficial president of your fan club. I just want to thank you. For everybody listening, John sent me one of his standard emails, and I'm just that kind of person. I responded and said, hey, John, would you mind getting on the podcast? And I just want to point out, John answers his own emails, and here we are. So thank you, John.
Yeah, I don't do social media, but I do. I mean, my team does my social media. So I do have social accounts, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and I don't know. But I do answer my own email.
And he works 17 hours a week. I'm going to let that sink in. So, John, thank you from the bottom of my heart for your time today. I think you're doing amazing things for the entrepreneurs in the world. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to either click the link below or scan the QR code to register and listen to other episodes of our podcast. Or if you think your business or you would be a great guest to be on our show, we're always looking for experts in one of the 9 elements of holistic wellness. We'd love to have you. You can either click the link below or you can scan the QR code and complete our speaker intake form. Thank you, and to your wellness.